Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jay, and in this video I have the new Zhiyun Cinepeer Weebill 3E Gimbal. Let's just get right into it. So, when you pop the lid off here, it comes in this nice little foam container. Just be careful taking the lid off. You don't really want to rip it off because you could break the foam. It is kind of flexible a little bit, but you know, again, just be cautious. So here's what we're looking at when you open the foam box here. So we have the main gimbal, we have the camera plate here. So this is going to get mounted to the bottom of the camera. I'll show you that in a second. We got the little tripod here. And again, here is the gimbal itself. Take that out. And then we have this little bag of stuff. And then we just got the little moisture packets in here. So let me throw that over there. So guys, by the way, Zhiyun did send this gimbal to me, but they didn't pay me or anything like that. I didn't charge them. Like, there's none of that. It's just they sent it to me. So I'm going to make this tutorial for you guys, and no money exchanged or anything like that. They have no input on what I say or anything like that, just so you know. All right, so here's what we're looking at. So the first thing we're going to want to do is charge this. Now, this does not come with a charger. So you're going to need a USB-C charger of some sort. Now, this is a PD power source that I'm using here. So that just plugs in right into the side of the handle like that. So you can see here on the screen, this is actually already charged, but that is going to be the first step that you guys are going to want to do. You're going to want to plug it in and make sure that it is fully charged before you start. That's the control port, not the charging port. So that's to help control the camera and stuff like that. So I'm going to put the tripod here on the bottom, but also note there's 3 threads here, and that's because this gimbal also accepts the accessory sling grip. So you can get that quick release sling grip accessory for this gimbal as well. It doesn't come with it at default, but you can buy it as an accessory. So that's why it has the 3 here. So this design is pretty much the same as the Zhiyun Weebill 3S, but I'm just going to screw in the tripod into the center one, like so. Tighten that down a little bit, and then we will spread that out here. There we go. So now we got it set up here. This is what it looks like out of the box. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to unlock the roll motor here on the back. So that's on the back side of the gimbal right here. If we unlock that, that releases this swivel here. So now this motor here is the one we're working with. I'm just going to swivel it upward like so, and then we're going to lock it again. So now it's locked in place. Then what we have here is the tilt motor. So you can let that go, and now that one is free to swing. And we're going to leave this one free to swing. Now there is one more lock here on this side for the pan axis, and we're going to leave that locked for now. I'll show you that in a minute when we go through the balancing process. We are going to unlock that one in a minute, but for now, it's going to stay like that. So check this out. You could see here on the top, we have this area that is going to accept the plate. So you see this screw on the back side of the plate? That's going to face forward like this. So that hole here is going to face forward, and that will slide in like that. And when the camera is mounted to this, you could then slide this to adjust the camera to get proper balance. Now, when you need to take this plate off, see that? It's like loose. There's actually a lock here that'll hold it tight. If you loosen that, it'll loosen. And now back here, there's a button. That's the quick release button. So you need to press that in order to slide the plate off. See that? So that's how that works. So let me mount this to the camera here. By the way, there's a couple of cables here and the screw in this bag. So this bag had the Allen key and 2 cables and a screw. And the screw is for this plate. So I'm gonna thread this in here. You can see right here on this plate, there's actually a spot where you can thread on the end. That's where this needs to go. And once that's in, then it'll slide back and forth and it won't fall out, like so. So you can use this Allen key, or I got this cool Condor blue thing which has the flat on it, so I could use that, or I could use one of these Allen keys as well. Any tool. I also have another tool here you could use, something like this, or a quarter you could use that'll go into that slit and turn. So you could do it all different ways. And we have a control cable, by the way, here. That's what this is. And then we have another one. This is the charging cable. The part with the hole here is going to go towards the lens, towards the front of the camera. So this is going to go this way. So you could see that hole there is towards the lens. So let's get this thread started here. It's always a little awkward just to get these started. Something like that. I'm just going to line this up like pretty much flush with the back of the screen here is what I pretty much like to do. So let me just tighten this thing up. I'm going to torque this down pretty good. So like I said, you're definitely going to want this pretty tight. So make sure you tighten it tight, because if you want to use this in portrait mode, the camera's going to sit like this, and there could be, you know, some swivel here if this isn't tight enough. So just make sure if you want to use portrait mode, you have this nice and tight. You can actually use the Allen key just to make sure this is tight enough. Get a little extra leverage with the Allen key. There we go. So I tightened it just a little bit more. All right, so now we got this thing set up. So this is actually just going to slide into this top slot. All right, so on the top here you have this lever. This lever will determine where this sits. So you could just put it right in the middle for now, lock that. And then this lever here, this lever right here is the one that controls this. So that's going to lock the plate. So like this is unlocked, this is locked. So I'm going to put it in the unlock position, and we're going to slide the camera in. And as it turns out, the camera does not fit like that, so I need to unlock this and slide this more outward. I'm going to put it like out there for now. Get the camera on there. There we go. So now I'm just going to lock this lever right here, the bottom one, and now the plate won't move. So now the camera won't slide forward and backward. That's what this one does. So you can see the two locks. You have the one here and the one here. This is the lock that holds the camera plate from sliding back, forward and back. This one is what determines whether the camera will slide left and right. So watch. So that's loose. Now I could slide the camera. See that? So I'm just going to slide the camera over till it's, you know, pretty close to the motor but not touching the motor. So right about there looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to lock this one right here, and that will keep the camera from sliding left and right. Now again, this one is the forward and back for the camera. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to adjust that. Now it's very important that you have the camera exactly how you want it for when you're going to use it. So I usually have the camera like this when I'm recording on the gimbal. I like to be able to see the screen, but I have the screen swiveled out. So you're going to want it like that. Also, if you're going to have a microphone on top, you're going to want to put that on as well, just to make sure you have the payload correct. Now, what I'm going to do is you want this level. So it's pretty close, but it actually needs to come back a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock this lever here, which will again allow me to move this plate forward and back. So I'm going to unlock that. And now again, now I can move the camera forward and back, as you can see here. So I'm just going to scoot it a little bit. And guys, just keep in mind, you're going to always want to keep your hand like under the lens and on the camera, because if suddenly it could shift and the thing will slide. Now it does have a safety, so it can't fall out without hitting the release button, but still, you want to be cautious. So right about there is level. So I'm just going to lock it. So again, I just got to slide this handle here over to the lock position. So that's locked like so. So step one, we're good. The camera's looking good. It's looking balanced. So step two now is to balance this way. So we have to have the camera vertical, and you can see it's not even close, right? So what we have to do is we have to move the payload. So the weight of the camera needs to move back to balance with this motor. And you can see like the weight of the camera is clearly too far forward, like right now, compared to this motor, because that's what we're balancing for right now. So we need to get the mass of the camera and the lens centered with this motor, right? We already did it this way, so the payload is balanced correctly this way for the motor, right? Like the center of mass of the lens and the camera are balanced correctly. That's why this is level right now, it's balanced. But this way it's not. So we need to slide the camera back. How you do that is this knob right here. So we're gonna loosen this knob, and now we can slide the camera back once we get it loose enough, like so. It's much easier to slide, like right here where the metal meets the metal, it kind of chafes, you know what I'm saying? It's like sliding metal on metal. So if you lift up on the camera a little bit with your left hand to take the weight off, it slides much easier. You see that? Now I can slide it like fairly easy. So what we're gonna do is try to get it level. So look, right there, it's pretty good. You can see it's pretty level. So I'm gonna tighten that. I shouldn't say level, but I should say is balanced. So right about there is balanced. Now, if we tilt it downward, it should stay there. Should stay here. Should stay at like every position now. because we have the vertical and the horizontal balanced. Yep, it looks good. There we go. So that's the first step, guys. The first step is like 2 phases. You got to get the camera front and back, and then you got to put it vertical, and you got to have it, again, front and back, vertical and horizontal. So we are good to go. So the next step now is to just lock this motor. So we lock that motor, make it nice and easy. So now we only have to worry about one axis at a time. So the next axis we're going to work on is the roll axis, which is the one in the back here. Now, again, you want to make sure your hand is under the camera, like under the gimbal here, because when we unlock this, this could swivel, as you can see here. You see how it wants to swivel that way? So, you know, like I said, you don't want to like hit swiveling and then the microphone hitting something or the lens hitting something or whatever. So just make sure you're always supporting the gimbal and the camera when you're doing this stuff. So anyways, it's obviously grossly swiveling this way. So what we need to do is we need to get the center of mass balanced with this motor now. So because we have this part of the gimbal and the camera weight, the camera is not balanced. So what we're going to need to do is adjust for that. So how we do that is with this one right here is the one that I'm adjusting, right? And that allows the camera to swivel like this, which is the adjustment we need right now because we need to adjust for this motor here. So let me just lock this back. I just wanted to show you which lock it was. All right, so now you could see the camera's going that way. It's too much to the left. My left. Right about there is pretty close. Right about there. And again, if you lift up on the camera, it's a little bit easier to slide because it chafes on the metal a little bit. It's close. Too much. Right about there. Right there is looking pretty good. So I'm just going to carefully hold this and lock the lever. Like so. There we go. So now we have that axis balanced. See that? Pretty cool, right? So I'm going to lock that one now. Now we have the last one, which is this one here on the bottom. So I'm going to unlock this one. If I swivel this around, you can see we have the switch right here. I'm just going to unlock that, and that's going to allow this to turn. So let me just put this back. So what we need to do here is we need to like tilt the camera and gimbal, and you can see how it's swiveling like that. It's not supposed to swivel. So that means it's not perfectly balanced on this motor. So what we're going to need to do is slide it either forward or back. This one's a little bit harder to tell which way you need to slide it. It's like a little deceiving, so that's a little too much. Let's slide it back a little more. No good. Slide it forward. Right about there, it's pretty good. So again, it's just a matter of like fine tuning. Like it's pretty darn close. Like that's close enough. All right, so we are good to go at this point. We got all 3 axes balanced. So what we're going to need to do now is we're going to need to tune the motors. What the motor tuning process does is it's going to allow for the gimbal to analyze the payload, and it's going to put the correct amount of torque and power to each motor for optimal performance. So what we need to do is we need to unlock all the motors. Now again, when you're doing this, guys, you need to make sure that you're supporting the camera just in case something went wrong or whatever. Like when you unlock, you just don't want to willy-nilly unlock because again, this can swivel down, it can swivel back, it can do stuff, and you don't want to damage anything. You don't want to damage the screen, your lens, whatever. So like I said, it's all balanced, it's pretty good, so you can let go of it and it's like safe, but just use caution, all right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the power button down, and it's this button here on the top. So there's 2 buttons here and then a dial. It's the top button. I know it's a little bit hard to see from this camera over here, but I'm just going to hold that button down. And the Cinepeer is going to turn on. All right, so what I'm going to do is, now that I turned it on, I'm going to select English. So if you use this scroll wheel, you see how it moves between languages? So I'm just going to select, go down to English here. I can actually turn this a little bit that way. Go to English, and then I'm going to press on this wheel here. You can press, it's like a button also, to select English. There we go. So now the default mode that it starts in is pan follow mode, but if you hit the mode button, it will cycle through the different modes. So that's lock mode, follow mode, pan follow mode. All right, so what I'm going to do now is press the menu button here because I want to tune the motors. So if you press the menu button here, you can see we have the motor option, and there's a little star next to it, so that's letting us know we're in the right spot. I'm just going to hit this button here, and then I'm going to hit auto. You want to auto calibrate this beast. Auto tune it's called. So there it goes, and you'll see the camera shaking when it's doing this, which is normal. There we go. So we got the check mark. So now we are good to go. This beast is basically ready to use at this point. So you can pick up the gimbal and you can see the camera is now stabilized. See what I mean? And this is the pan follow mode by default. So you can see the camera will turn, but it's not tilting. When I tilt the handle, it's not tilting. And when I tilt forward, it's not tilting that way either. That's pan follow mode. If you hold the trigger down, it'll go into go mode. So go mode will allow it to tilt down, but it still won't tilt when you go left to right here. So again, go mode will allow you to tilt down and up like so. Now, if you double tap the trigger, it'll go back to default. If you triple tap the trigger, it'll go into selfie mode, as you can see here. So now it's facing towards me. That's selfie mode, like so. Now you also have the joystick here. So the joystick will allow you to move the gimbal and camera around. And you can go into the menu, you can change the speed of the joystick. So guys, one other thing on this gimbal is this wheel in the front here, and by default, if you turn it, it's going to actually roll the camera. So it's affecting the roll motor on the back here, and that's what this is doing. Now, you can change this wheel to control the aperture of your camera and things like that if you use the control cable, but that's what this is by default, and you can change it. And then don't forget, double tap the trigger here, and it'll put the camera back to default position like so. Now, one thing I want to do is, if you guys want to try to control the camera with the gimbal, cameras they vary as far as compatibility goes. So there's a compatibility list as to what you can do with what camera with this gimbal. This is the cable for that. It's the USB-C to USB-C, and you can plug it into the camera, and you can go right into this port here on the back, this yellow one that I showed you guys earlier. It's right here on the down handle is where it would go. So that's where you can plug in the cable if you want to try that. I actually just prefer to use the Bluetooth shutter function myself. Over years of using gimbals and stuff like that, I just find hitting record, start and stop is really all I want to do with the gimbal. Now again, I'm probably in the minority there. You might want to control your gimbal completely. But what I find is when using a control cable, it kind of handicaps the camera a bit, because a lot of times you have to put the camera into PC remote mode, and when you put it in that mode, it shuts down some of the functions of the camera. So I much prefer just using the Bluetooth connectivity mode. So let me show you how to set that up really quick. All right, so on my Sony a7C II, if you go into this green tab here on the left, which is the network tab, and you scroll down to Bluetooth, you have Bluetooth function. Now, I have it set to on, but what you need to do is you need to go into pairing, and it's in the pairing mode. So this is what you need to do to get the camera in pairing mode. So now that the camera's in pairing mode, just leave it like that. And you can see here we got this blue shutter option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the dial on the side, and I'm going to scroll down to the blue shutter option, and then I'm going to press in on the wheel here, like so. So check this out. We got the a7 IV, which is my studio camera, which I'm filming with here. You could look at it in front of me. And then we have the a7C II right here. So I'm going to scroll to the a7C II, like so. And then I'm going to hit the button to connect, and it says connect. So I'm just going to press the button again, and now it's connecting. So then on the camera here, I just have to hit OK, and that is the back button here on the center dial here. I'm just going to press that. It's going to connect. And there we go. Now we are paired. All right, so if you're looking at the screen on the camera here, notice when I press the record button here on the gimbal. So if I lightly press it, it's going to focus. You can see how the focus just came up. Now if I press it all the way in, it'll start recording. And if I press it all the way in again, it'll stop recording. So it's like a two-stage button, very similar to a shutter button on a camera. So that's pretty cool because you can just focus if you want, or while you're recording, you can press it to refocus without stopping to record. So that's pretty much how I use this gimbal, and it works great. Hitting record, focusing, and stopping record. I really like this setup, and in my opinion, it's the most practical way to use this as opposed to using it with the cables. Now, by all means, if you want to try messing around with the cables, have at it. But like I said, it definitely tends to lock the cameras down depending on what camera and what firmware update you're at and so forth. All right, so I just want to go over the different modes really quick. So looking at the back here, you could see this is the pan follow mode. Now, if you just cycle through the modes by pressing the mode button here, you can see how it switches modes. So now this is lock mode. Now this is follow mode. And if we scroll back, it goes back to pan follow mode. So now if we double press the mode button, it'll go into the, I would say, more advanced modes. So if I double press, it's in lock mode. So I didn't double press it correctly. Let me double press. All right, there we go. Point of view mode. Now point of view mode is all the axes. All right, so now if we double press it one more time, it's going to go into vortex mode, and you can see how it aims upward. All right, so we're in vortex mode now. So again, we could use the joystick to rotate the vortex, which is pretty cool. And you can go in the menu and you can change the speed of this as well if you want it to go faster or whatever. Now if we double tap the mode again, it's going to go into portrait mode. And if we hold the gimbal, you can see this is what portrait mode's all about. And now if I double tap the mode, we can go into point of view mode. So point of view mode is going to allow the camera to follow at all angles. So you can see how the camera is following the handle. Now if I twist the handle, notice how the camera is following. And then if I tilt forward and back, the camera is following. That's what point of view mode does. Now I have it in vortex mode. So again, vortex mode, you would hold, you know, like this, for example, and then you can turn it and it'll get that vortex effect. And then you can do some cool zoom in and zoom outs using vortex mode. Now if I double tap again, it'll go back into portrait mode here. That's what portrait mode looks like. Double tap again, and we're going to go into point of view mode. Now, if I just single press the mode button, we're now in pan follow mode. So remember, the trigger will reset the camera to the default position if you double tap it. So just double tap the trigger, it will go into the default position. So pan follow mode, notice how the camera is not tilting left or right. And it's not tilting downward either. But if I twist the grip, it's following. Hence pan follow, because this is the pan motor. So that's what pan follow mode does. I use this mode the most, I would say, out of all the modes, because you could zoom into stuff, pull back, and you don't have to worry about the camera twisting and the horizon lines being off. So if I switch to lock mode, now lock mode's not going to move no matter what you do. So I could twist the handle and nothing's happening. I can tilt it forward, back, right, left, nothing. It's locked. This is a great mode if you just don't want the camera to move. You're walking and you don't want to accidentally have the thing turn by twisting the handle. You could put it in lock mode for that. And then we have follow mode. So now follow mode will follow you this way and this way. So the pan works. If you tilt down, it will also follow. So we get tilt and pan. But notice if I tilt it this way, how it's not leaning. That's the difference between follow mode and point of view mode. Point of view mode, if I do this, the camera will tilt. And now we're back into pan follow mode. So pan follow is just going to stay locked no matter what we do, unless we twist the handle. Then it will follow. And again, guys, you can change the speed at how this stuff responds and stuff in the gimbal. Very, very powerful. And that is the bottom line for how to use this gimbal in the different modes and stuff, how to balance it in both horizontal and vertical. And remember here, if you want to go into selfie mode, you triple click the trigger. It goes into selfie mode. And then we hit it again, 1, 2, 3, it'll go back. And then if we double tap, it'll put the camera back to like the baseline center. So I just want to show you how you can mount this in portrait mode, even though the gimbal actually has a portrait mode, so you could leave it like this and it'll put it into a vertical mode. I just want to show you how you can mount the camera in the vertical mode, because you do have to balance it when it's mounted vertically. So let me show you that really quick. I'm just going to shut the camera off, close the screen for a second. I got to shut the gimbal down, so I'm going to put my hand under it to support it, and I'm just going to hold the power button down. And there we go. The gimbal is shutting off. So now the gimbal's off, and you can see because the screen is closed, it's just slightly off balance. But anyways, what you got to do here, guys, is you actually have to take this whole plate off. So looking at the bottom here, you got to slide this whole plate off. So you can see this hook right here. That hook is actually going to go on this slide bar when we take it off. So that's what this is for here, and that's what this handle is for, to tighten it. So what we got to do first, though, is we got to unlock it right here so we can slide it off. So it's this lock button right here. Just going to unlock it, and now we can slide this left and right, as you can see here. So you can see when you're trying to slide this off, it doesn't want to come off because there's this button here. You got to press that button and then it slides off, see? So as you can see here, we have this hook, like I was saying, this slot here that's going to slide onto this bar in the vertical position. So if we put the gimbal back, I'm just going to lock all the motors like we did before. So it's nice and easy to do. Just lock the motors, so now things totally locked down. So this right here is going to slide onto this right here. So we're just going to slide this on there to loosen that a little bit. There we go. Slide that over. So now what I'm going to do is, before I tighten that, I want to make sure that this is somewhat balanced. So let me just uncheck the roll axis here. And you can see it's definitely heavily weighted that way. So we're going to slide this back over. Something like that. Right about there is pretty close. That's pretty close right there. I'm just going to leave it like that. I think that's pretty good. So right about there. And now what I need to do is tighten this, because this clamp is being held by this screw here. That is the tightener. And you might have to pull the little handle off to rotate it. So the handle you can actually pull outward and then readjust it, and then it locks back in, and then you can tighten it more, because sometimes it'll hit the plate and stuff. So you have to like pull these little things out, and then you can readjust it to get it to tighten better. So there we go. So now we have it mounted vertically. Now if we unlock, you do have to balance it again though, guys. You got to do all the balancing over. So you can see it's off. So right now it's not balancing horizontally, but it's pretty close vertically. All right, guys, so now what we need to do is we need to adjust this slider here, this lock, so we can move the plate back and forth, and that's gonna get the camera to balance this way. So we need it to balance this way. So I'm gonna unlock this lever here, and now I can slide the camera forward and back. So it's the same concept. We have to get the center of mass balanced with this motor. So I'm just gonna slide it forward. Right there, actually, it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna lock it there. And now let's try the vertical and see if it stays. Not so much. See if I let it go, how the lens will actually hit this motor back here. It's really close. Yeah, it hits. Boom, boom. So you got to be careful. Always make sure you hold it. So now what I need to do is I need to slide this whole thing away from the motor, because you can see it's swiveling back. So now I need to loosen this one. Slide it down a little bit. Maybe not that much. Again, it's like chafing, so it's kind of hard to move. All right, right there, it looks pretty good. Tighten that up. There we go. So now we got vertical. Boom, boom, boom. Good to go. Could lock that motor, unlock this motor. See how it is? It's pretty close. It could slide just a little bit to the left. All right, so let me loosen this one up right here, this guy. And we can just slide this over a touch. That's probably too much. There we go, right there. All right, so let me tighten this down. There we go. So now we got that balanced. Good to go. Now we can check the last pan here, see if that's pretty good. That's a little bit off. So I just had to slide that bottom one back a little bit. That's close enough. So this bottom one here, you just have to slide it in and out. It is pretty sensitive. Like you know, it's within like almost a 1/16 of an inch to get it right. But anyways, that's all three motors. So now we are balanced and we have it in the portrait position or the vertical position for those that want it dedicated in this format. That's how you do that. Always make sure that you do the torque test. You got to do that like adjustment, the auto tune. If you put it in portrait mode, you change lenses, you change the camera, you move stuff, you have to rebalance it and redo that auto tune to make sure that the gimbal is working at its best performance. So please keep that in mind. All right, guys, thanks again for watching, and I hope you got something out of this tutorial. I hope you have some fun using your new gimbal and you get some exciting footage. There's links in the description area if you're interested in any of this stuff, this gimbal, the other gimbal, accessories. I also have another tutorial for the 3S if you want to see how you can set that gimbal up, very similar to this video. All right, guys, I'll catch up with you next time. Take care.